Our first guest tonight is one of the heroes of one of the greatest comebacks in BYU football history. 44 years ago next month, Cougars rallied from 20 down in the final 4 minutes to stun SMU 46-45 on the in the 1980 Holiday Bowl. It is a pleasure to welcome Scott Phillips to the Wise Guys.
Thank you.
How are you?
Good.
I can't believe it's been 44. When Dave just said that, I was like, 44 years ago? Wow, where have all those years gone, man?
Yeah, I know. It's crazy, isn't it?
It's like, yeah, it's gone by way too fast.
How fast did you run in college?
Well, it was a different era, right? We didn't even time ourselves, honestly. I don't remember ever being timed in high school.
Really?
For the 40 or in college. It wasn't until the pro scouts came in. And then it was, just a stopwatch, right? But so that was the first time I actually remember being timed. And so I think the best time I ever had, and I'm trying to think, I think you
ran a 4.38 or something
like
that.
Yeah, 4.38, 4.37 in that range.
Yeah.
Which I don't know how that compares today.
Hey, guys, okay. Before you came in the building, Scott, I just said one of the fastest players to ever put on a BYU uniform. I already pubbed you with that.
Okay.
and I, I've known Scott for a long time, and that 4.38, 4.37 was eye-popping back at that time. That's right there with anybody in today's world.
Hey, on the stream, David says your wife, Linda, was his cheer partner in the 78-79 school year. How about that?
That's great, yeah. She just barely showed me a picture. Honestly, I can't remember who sent it to her, but it showed her and him in a parade and going down some pregame parade, her in a cheerleading outfit or so forth. So, yeah, good.
As you look at today's game now, fast forward a little bit, and the speed that you see out on the field, and you were fast. Is it a different kind of speed today?
Well, bigger guys are faster, right? I mean, you had to be a little more slender and so forth. It seems like they kind of have that kind of speed. So they're definitely bigger. They're definitely stronger. You see a lot in the NFL, of course.
Yeah.
But in college as well. So yeah, I think they are. I don't know as like I say, the running a bunch of 4.36s now and 4.35s. Some do, but it's very rare still. But I think you have these big guys. I mean, defensive ends and linebackers and so forth. They're just amazingly how fast they are.
Jack Kelly's closing speed has been impressive.
Yeah, Jack Kelly at 2.38 runs in the 4.5s.
Yeah.
Which we never. You didn't have linebackers at that size running in the 4.5s. They were 4.7 or 4.8 back then.
Yeah.
So it's just more of those guys. Do you pay attention to Taysom Hill at all now?
No, I have a son-in-law who does, so I hear through him.
Yeah.
But I watch a little NFL, but not a lot.
Yeah, because he reminds me on the field, the way he runs away from people, the way you used to run away from people. And Taysom's got to be 235 pounds and runs, 4.4-ish. And he's just running away from people in the NFL. So he's carrying on that speed tradition.
Yeah.
So.
Hey, let's go back in time for a moment. It's 38-19. SMU leads in the fourth quarter of the 1980 Holiday Bowl. You score from the 1 on a run. At this point, do you think your guys are still in the game?
What time did you say it was? How much?
It was 38-19.
Early in the fourth.
Yeah, early in the fourth.
Early in the fourth. No. It was. We'd been there before, Holiday Bowl, and it looked the same as it was the years before. We hadn't won a bowl game to that point, I don't think.
Right.
And so no, there was kind of the same kind of mentality on the sideline. I remember sort of looking to one of my buddies on the sideline saying, "Here we are again," because we thought we were better than that. SMU was obviously very good.
Yeah.
But we thought we were better than that, and just hadn't materialized yet. So, and of course, when the comeback starts, we're at how much time's left in the game then? 4 minutes?
4 minutes.
Under 4 minutes, because later on in the fourth, because that was early in the fourth, but later on in the fourth, you score again, and then you catch the 2-point conversion. So now it's 45-39.
Yeah.
At that point, are you thinking a little bit different?
Well, you keep playing, right? It's interesting when you're on the field versus a fan. In fact, I was telling my wife as we were watching the game last week, and it was nip and tuck as it was. I felt a lot more nervous there than you ever did on the field, right? You're just playing on the field. You don't notice that, and so when you're in there, you're doing all you can to win. And the scoreboard is not irrelevant, but it's not as relevant because you're just playing and you're doing your best. And if the opportunity presents itself, then it does. But I remember we didn't necessarily even have. I think there was We didn't. I think we had an onside kick at one time, but the other time we didn't, and we didn't get it, and so you ended up. We had to sort of let them play their 4 downs again, right? So time's clicking, and you're feeling like the time's just really getting down to nothing, and then.
Then Bill Shefflin blocks the punt.
Yeah.
And the Cougs recover. Jim tries a bomb, throws it out of bounds, and now we're down to one play. It's the most infamous play in BYU history,
right.
McMahon to Clay Brown for the game winner on the last play of the game. Where were you at on the field, and what was your vantage point of what was going on?
Well, interestingly enough, unknown stories sometimes. So they had called maximum protection, which is both backs block, and so I'm there on the left-hand side, and Eric Lane's on the right-hand side. And it just so happened the outside linebacker did blitz, and so I stayed in and blocked, and which mattered that I stayed because otherwise he might have got to Jim. But Eric didn't, just headed down the field. And so after the game, I said, Eric, where were you? Like, I'm in the backfield by myself. And he says, I wasn't going to miss that. so he's down there, and I'm sitting there back here blocking. And his guy didn't blitz, so luckily it worked out. But
he wasn't going to miss out on it.
I'm not going to miss this. Are you kidding me?
So you're blocking a guy. Now you're 40-something yards away from where the play ends. What do you remember seeing?
Well, I saw them all go up in the air like anybody else did, but then it wasn't until you see the ref put his hands in the air and kind of simultaneously the crowd erupts, and so it became obvious to everybody then. And so I was sort of a low-key guy, so I didn't usually do much. I didn't have a touchdown celebration, but that time I jumped in the air.
You actually jumped?
Yeah, I jumped in the air that time.
And did you run to the end zone, or did you run? Where'd you go?
Yeah, down the end zone. I think we all kind of did,
Yeah, the fans that were watching would say, hey, while the ball was in the air, it seemed like it was dead silent. Yeah. And then when the signal went up, it erupted. And did you feel that when you were out on the field?
Yeah. Yeah, because you have this sort of valiant comeback, and then you feel like you're just going to just fall short. I don't know what the percentage of Hail Mary passes are. They've got to be under 20% or 10% or something of actually completing them. So it wasn't like you think you have it in the bag, right? And so when the Hail Mary is the last desperation shot, it's still surprising to think that he caught it.
When Darius Laster caught his game-winning touchdown to beat Oklahoma State in that last-minute drive. It wasn't the Hail Mary type thing, but it was just an improbable finish. When you see those kinds of things happen to BYU, do you reflect on this grand thing that happened to you?
Yeah. Anytime you see a comeback, they always talk about the greatest comebacks, and you see that. And of course, just when you see the makeup of that, to be 3 touchdowns, down with 3 minutes and under 4 minutes left, it's impossible. It's certainly improbable, but I think impossible. And so every time I see a comeback, I say, one of the greatest comebacks. Well, you didn't watch the Mislu station, right? And then that's the problem. It was the beginning of cable. We weren't very widely publicized, right?
Yeah, ESPN was a few years away.
Yeah, I think Mislu had about a 4-month run or something.
Yeah, it wasn't big.
So it wasn't captured across the nation in the same manner, but I think when you look at that, I don't know how you find a game that's actually in the history of football that's actually you could say it was a better comeback. Yeah, more improbable. I
can't think of one in all my years of playing and covering it. What a lot of fans don't realize is in that 46-45 win, the backs were a big part of the passing game at BYU in those days. You led the Cougars in receiving that game. You had 10 catches, 81 yards, a 2-point conversion, 2 touchdown runs in that game. So everybody thinks back in that game, and immediately their mind goes to Clay Brown catching the game-winning. But on the offensive side of the ball, nobody had a bigger impact in that game than you. When you reflect back, do you think about how much you had a hand in that?
Well, I don't know if I see it that way. I just, you do what you're called upon to do, and but all season long, running backs played a key, and tight ends, right? It's a little different than it is now. I think we should get to that a little bit more.
Yeah.
Running backs and tight ends. And then we had two wide outs and 4 in the rotation, so we had a lot of people in the play. So McMahon had 5 options at any time, it seemed like. And but running backs did catch a lot of balls then, and so it wasn't so unusual to be in the mix that often from the catching perspective.
Let me read this while you take a swig of the water there.
Yeah.
Former BYU running back Scott Phillips is on the Wise Guys tonight, presented by Brady Plus and distributed by the Deseret News. Phillips played at BYU between 1977 and 1980, including that Miracle Bowl we've been talking about against SMU. BYU beat SMU earlier this season, and now SMU is back in the game, and they'll be up in the college football rankings with just the one loss when those are announced tomorrow. What has impressed you the most about this BYU team? They beat the Mustangs. That kind of got our attention.
Yeah.
They had our attention anyway because we're covering them all the time. But that got some national attention because they were underdogs in that, and then they just kept going.
Yeah, I think that just every season it seems like there's a lot of hype, right? And this year it seemed like for the first time there hasn't been any hype.
Yeah, no hype.
Yeah, and I was kind of like saying, good, because maybe they'll live up to it, right? And so I think they've exceeded expectations. Now, of course, expectations rise, and so last week was a disappointment because of the expectations. Otherwise, it wouldn't have been so deflating. But I think that so just their ability, they're better on offense, they're better on defense. They don't show up every game, perhaps. The last few games have been a little suspect, but they're just better all the way around. I think they're better coached. I think they're just playing better, and they seem, from talking to Kalani and the like, they seem to really be together as a team. I think there's a lot of unity there.
Well, how do you manage, and you played on some teams that had some great runs and won a lot of games, but only one team's been undefeated in the modern era, in BYU. So there's always a bump in the road, or two, some years. So you played on some great teams. How do you handle that disappointment when you're on a great run and then you have a loss? What do you do to put that behind you and move on so you're ready to play the next week?
Yeah.
Well, if you like what you're watching, you can help us out by subscribing and hitting that notification button. What do you do to put that behind you and move on so you're ready to play the next week?
Yeah. Well, that's the key, isn't it? Because it's going to happen almost every year. And some teams, they're on a big rise, and so that deflates them, and so they sort of lose that momentum the rest of the year. And other people sort of regather themselves and move forward. And so I just think there's a leadership quality, there's a momentum, there's a belief, right? And I think frankly, since our era when we sort of won most every game we played, and that carried on for a number of years. But we got into a little bit of doldrums there for a few years as well. And so I think just the belief system to come back, maybe too much belief because we're willing to let themselves get behind too much and think they could always come back, and it looked like they were going to do it again. Last Saturday. But there is that belief system that we can win. We can beat anybody, and I think that's important. And so it's a combination of not getting overconfident, but also you got to believe in yourself. And I think that's harder to get to than sort of being overconfident.
Saturday is Arizona State. We had a whole team of experts weighing in on their keys to the game. Let's get yours now to go down there to Sun Devil Stadium. It's now Mountain America Stadium. It's the same place. Being held up by toothpicks and duct tape, I think, last time we were down there.
Last time I was in that stadium, I was like, wow, this thing needs
the
a
Rolling
remodel.
Stones have played there a dozen times. But what's the key for Saturday for these guys to get to win number 10?
I'm a little biased. My upbringing in football at BYU was passing and then passing some more. We led the nation every year in almost every category that had to do with scoring and touchdowns, and that was just the mindset of Lavelle's, the mindset of Doug Scoville. And so I'm biased. I think we need to pass more. I think when I see us move the ball, it's usually we're passing. That doesn't mean we don't run with the ball well, too. We have some pretty good running backs, frankly.
How about pass more in the hurry-up? Because Jake seems to flourish in that hurry-up offense.
Exactly. And we seem to score right at the end of right before a half is coming or something. But when we're forced to pass, it seems to go well for us, particularly over the middle. And then I think that there is a difference in red zone calls and non-red zone calls, right? I mean, the field is 80% shorter now. You've got to do something different. And I think coaches do have a red zone, offering, and I'm not sure exactly what BYU's. I've seen some creativity at times and some misdirection, but you've got to do something more than just run it up the middle when you've got 4 downs to make it happen. If you're on the 1 yard line, you can get away with that, perhaps. But so I think a little more innovation in the red zone and a little more willingness to put the ball in the air. I think we've shown we can do that.
So pass more and be more effective in the red zone. A little more creative.
Yeah. And back in your day, Scott, and which was my day too, we had this mentality that we'll just throw it and then we'll set up our run with a throw game. And that quick throw game to the backs and the tight ends. And now it feels like everybody says, well, you gotta set up the pass with the run. But you don't have to, do you?
Well, it's funny you'd say that. That's one of the things I tell my family all the time as we're watching football. Whenever I hear an announcer say, you got to run to set up the pass, I said, that is not true. There's too many evidences that that's not true. We are one of them. You can look at a lot of teams where they pass a lot. You can pass to set up the run. I'm not advocating you don't run. I'm just saying that you could pass when it's not expected. And pass more often, and then your run game becomes more open. But clearly that's possible. We see teams do it all the time.
I mean, is that not what the Kansas City Chiefs do?
Yeah.
The Kansas City Chiefs throw the ball to set up the run.
I think that the Patriots did that for years, right?
Seemed to work for them.
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah, there's a couple of good examples.
Yeah.
The Chiefs had the same kind of game BYU had over the weekend.
Yeah.
Turnovers showed up and got in the way, and then momentum took the other team.
You hope that I know the mentality of the Chiefs because they've won multiple Super Bowls in a row. They're going to go, well, that was an aberration. Like, we got to prepare better this week because we're never going to lose 2 in a row, and that was an aberration. I hope that's BYU's mentality. Okay, we played bad. We didn't prepare well on offense, but that's got to be an aberration. We're a winning team. Let's go with confidence. Let's prepare well and go get Arizona State. Is that what it takes?
I think so. I think that I think offensive coordinators generally across the nation, as I look at them, they have there's a fear factor, right? You hate interceptions, and so it's just easier to hand the ball off and let the ball run up the middle, just on some situations, and it's more risky to throw the ball. So we think, at least, and so I think there has to be a little bit more of a. And again, I was raised a little bit, cut my teeth on Doug Scoville, and you maybe remember this, but Doug Scoville every Friday night before the game, we'd be practicing in the stadium just to walk through, and he'd point to the scoreboard. He'd have the whole offense sort of gather around and he'd put in the scoreboard. And he'd say, light it up, and he'd start screaming and everybody started hooting up. But he did that every single game that I recall. And the only reason we didn't score more points is because LaBelle would
tamp it down at the end, right?
Yeah. He'd score 80 points if it let him. So.
Yeah, I watched you score 83 against UTEP in one of those years.
And you remember Mike Leach? I was having a conversation with him just a few years ago, before he passed away, and I loved Mike Leach, but we're talking about a game that they were going to play, and I said, and they say that they're just going to completely shut you down from running it, so you can't run it at all, and you're going to be one-dimensional. And he goes, yeah, I don't care if we can run it. I go, you don't care? He goes, I don't even care. He goes, if they're going to load the box, I'll throw it 60 times. I don't care. And I thought, man, I love that mentality.
And he did.
That's what he did.
Yeah. We're with Scott Phillips here on the Wise Guys. Before we hit you with 5 questions, and by the way, live stream, we're watching you, Mike, from Jakarta, Indonesia. I saw Council Bluffs, Iowa there. Keep them coming as the Wise Guys combs the free world. Give us an update on your family and life and all of that stuff. What are you up to?
Oh, boy. It's... nothing to really report. It's just sort of life is normal, right? 5 kids, 14 and a half grandkids.
Wow.
And just, keeping busy with a lot of good things, family, church,
golf on occasion.
Yard work on occasion.
Well, he plays golf more than on occasion in the summer.
Well, it's tapering off a bit.
Have you not been playing as much?
But I do see you every time I'm there. So
no,
that's probably true.
That is not true.
That's probably true.
We both miss our old playing buddy Danny Plater.
Yes.
So he was fun. We played a little faster if Danny played with us.
Yeah.
And we learned patience when Danny played with us.
Yeah.
So that's a brother to both of us, Danny Plater.
Let's do 5 questions. This is like 1 minute left in the game against SMU. You don't have any timeouts, so it's going to come fast and furious.
First thing that comes to your head, it's pretty easy. We're going to start with this. What's your favorite sports movie?
Remember the Titans.
Titans, good one.
Love it. Your favorite singer or band?
Don't have one.
You don't have one?
No.
If you're just going to listen to music, like what would you put on?
Frank Sinatra.
All right. That's old school.
You know what?
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with Frank.
Yeah.
Actually, sometimes I'm in that mood. Sometimes I do just put some Frank on.
I spent 20 years working in Vegas. I think there's people who still think Frank sings down there.
Yeah.
It's just, he's just part of history.
And nobody did it better. I would agree with you on that one. That's the first person that said that. And
that is our first Frank.
That's thoughtful. Okay, your favorite.
I'm old.
Yeah, I know. I'm right there with you, brother. Your favorite breakfast cereal?
I eat bran flakes every morning, pretty much.
Do you put sugar on them though?
No,
Just straight bran flakes?
raisins and almonds.
Okay, so you do put some raisins and almonds to sweeten it up a little bit. So, what did Gift tell us? What did Gift say that he ate?
I don't know what Gift said. I can't remember. But I thought it was like
It was
frosted shredded wheat or something.
It was something really healthy, but it was frosted. And then Danny Ainge comes in and says he just eats shredded wheat, like the plain old shredded wheat. I was like, why don't you just eat grass then? Because that's what that tastes like.
Bran flakes.
So bran
okay.
flakes.
All right.
But he does put almonds and
Gives him some help.
raisins on it. He helps it out. Okay.
Gives him some help.
Your favorite BYU quarterback, I'm going to really put you on the spot now. Your favorite BYU quarterback, it's a multiple choice. Mark Wilson or Jim McMahon?
Boy, favorite by what standard?
No, I'm just
your favorite.
You decide.
I can't decide that. They both have some great qualities.
If you were putting together a flag football team and you needed a quarterback and it was these two guys, you could only pick one, who would you pick?
Jim's the best quarterback we've ever had here. So, I mean, but Mark was great to play with and was highly talented, maybe even a bit underrated.
Both first-round draft picks.
But Jim's the best we've ever had, I think, here.
Yeah.
So you go with Jim?
Yep.
There's no shame in that.
Yeah.
We had Mark on our pregame show
Mark
on
was
game
on
day.
set with us last week.
I think he might pick Jim. If he had to pick one of the two. But
and we've had Steve on a couple of times, Steve Young, and you didn't play with Steve. I played with Steve. And I didn't get to play with Mark, but he's a good friend. But I played with Jim and Steve. And even Steve I think, would admit, in college, the greatest quarterback of all time is Jim McMahon.
Yeah.
Now, Steve did crazy things in the NFL.
Yeah.
who threw a ball that was the easiest to catch? And they both had very different releases with Mark and Jim.
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 Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. He was the best.
Yeah, a little softer, I think.
Yeah. Mark would be throwing
Mark would
downhill.
come out some rockets, send you some rockets.
Yeah, a little taller. Kind of came down on you a little bit more sometimes, but
Well,
Mark was great.
and Jim had that unbelievable ability. It didn't matter which way he was rolling, to his right and throwing across his body or getting his shoulders around. He could just launch it 60 yards on the run.
And it didn't always spiral either.
No.
It was just
Right
soft.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool.
He's one of the greatest ever in college football history. So, okay, this one's a little tougher. Your favorite BYU memory ever?
Well, I guess it has to be that Miracle Bowl. I don't know how we could top that one. Yeah.
Yep.
I was at that game the year before against Indiana. You're 11-0, and the kick goes awry at the end. Indiana wins by 1 point. So on that field, you've got that feeling, and then you fast forward the next year, and you have that feeling.
Yeah.
Who gets to have those two feelings in 12 months?
Yeah. It was pretty good.
From the agony of defeat to the thrill of victory.
And Lee Corso still hangs his hat on that one win. He's always talking about that
Yeah,
one.
that's all he's got going.
I feel like he doesn't like BYU for some reason. I don't know why.
He coached for the Hoosiers.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why.
Yeah. Well,
Scott, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for
Scott, I
inviting me.
appreciate having you here, buddy. Good to see you.
Fantastic career, and we applaud you in your life, and great representative of what BYU is, and one of the fastest Cougars ever to suit up.
Yep. I'm telling you right now, nobody faster. So
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
and there's fast on the track, which he was, but there's fast on the field. Nobody faster on the field than this guy right
Yeah,
here.
get the ball. You got to go catch him. Got to go catch him. SMU didn't think you'd get around the corner that fast.
So thanks for being on, Scott.
thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you for watching The Wise Guy.
If you like what you're watching, you can help us out by subscribing and hitting that notification button.